Hi guys, welcome back to our series of Azure Active Directory, and in this video I'm going to talk about Hybrid Azure AD joined for federated domains. Now if you're watching the series from the beginning, in the last video I have discussed about how you can configure Hybrid Azure AD join if you have managed domains, whereas the agenda of this particular video will be knowing how you can configure Hybrid Azure AD join if you have federated domains. I will also walk you through with AAD Connect setup because if you have federated domain, there are different set of options which are reflected. Now, the reason behind this is that AAD Connect can be used to deploy ADFS, whereas you can deploy ADFS separately and then get the domain federated. In both the scenarios, there are certain rules that have to be created in the relying party trust, and I will be covering all of those rules as well. The last thing that I'm going to talk about will be logs and event viewer because this is the most important part which will help you to troubleshoot if a particular set of machines are not getting joined to hybrid Azure AD state in your Azure Active Directory. Now let's start off by knowing the basic concept of hybrid Azure AD join. It is a device that's been connected to your local AD as well as Azure Active Directory, and both the repositories will have a device object. This means what? Whenever a machine is joined to Azure Active Directory, there is a device object created. Similarly, when a machine is domain joined, there is a device object created in domain joined computers OU as well. But the device object of Azure Active Directory will help you to implement conditional access, or you can think of this as the foundation of device-based conditional access. Moving on in knowing what all setup requirements you need, the very first one is your AAD Connect version should be at least 1.1819 because this is the console of AAD Connect, or this version of AAD Connect will help you to get the SCP registered by just providing enterprise admin credential. Second thing that you need, that you must be using ADFS or any other identity provider for federation, but what you have to make sure that WIA or multiple authn claim is issued to Azure AD when a device is coming for authentication. Now, the reason behind this is all Windows down level devices would need this claim to get joined to Hybrid Azure AD. This is something which is not required in Windows 10, but all the Windows down level devices will need this particular claim. What you have to make sure that all the OUs should be in sync scope. This is same as compared to that of managed domains. Now I'll tell you the reason behind this, that starting from 1803, if for any reason the first federated auth request by a device gets failed, since your object device object is synced to Azure Active Directory, the authentication gets completed with that certificate key part, which I have explained in the previous video as well. So this is the reason why your devices should be in sync scope and why they must be synced to Azure Active Directory. Now, if you are using ADFS, you have to make sure all these endpoints are enabled because the devices will be accessing these endpoints in the process of getting hybrid Azure AD joined. Now, in the previous video, I have mentioned 4 endpoints which should be available in the local intranet zone. And the only change that you have to do is you have to add your organization's address as well. What do I mean by this? That let's say my ADFS is adfs.conceptswork.com. I have to add that particular link in the local intranet zone as well, so that the SSO gets completed and the machine gets registered by default. So moving on in knowing more what you need from ADFS perspective, your ADFS should be at least 2012 R2. And again, a quick overview about the device type. Windows current devices are Windows 10, 2016 and 2019, and all the other client OS operating systems are known as Windows down level devices. So now let's proceed with making the changes in AAD Connect setup, and I'll also show you the group policy that I have changed or where I have added the additional link so that my ADFS link should also be available in the local intranet zone. So this is my machine from which I'm going to make changes in my AAD Connect setup. So I have initiated AAD Connect configuration wizard where I will be selecting the option of devices. So now I'm going to click on configure and I'm going to click on the option which says configure device option. This is same as compared to that of managed. The same console will help you to enable device write back as well. Now I'm going to type my global admin credential, and all this process does is verifies whether the credentials that you have entered is actually a global admin credential or not. That's all being done right now. Now, the moment this process gets completed, as you can see, it has examined the domain and domain type as well. And I will also show you where exactly the options are getting changed as compared to managed domain. So now I'm going to click on configure hybrid Azure AD join and I'll click on next. I'll select both the device types and I'll again click on next. Now, as I've explained this in the previous video as well, since this is a change which is going to happen in the configuration partition, that's why it requires you to enter enterprise admin credential, and that's all I have done. And now I'm going to click on next. Now, as you can see that it is showing me that as per the domain that you have mentioned, it is a federated domain, and there are a lot more configuration in fact that has to be done on your ADFS. So what you have to make sure that all the ADFS endpoints are enabled, as well as those claim rules are created as well, which I will be showing you on ADFS console, so that it will make more sense what exactly happens under the hood. Now, in cases where you have deployed ADFS with AAD Connect, you will receive a different set of options wherein all the process of creating rules will be taken care by AAD Connect setup itself. Now I'll click on next and I'll get one more option of configure. The moment I'll click on configure, the SCP part will be completed, but still we have to complete the ADFS part. So now all the setup which is required from AAD Connect is completed. I'll click on exit and then I'm going to click on my deck once again. And now we'll move on in understanding what all is required from ADFS perspective when it comes to claims and claim rules. So these are the list of all the claims that has to be sent to Azure Active Directory for a device auth, and all these claims will be sent by different claim rules. But the most important part which you have to focus is this fourth rule, wherein the issuer ID gets generated. Now, as you can see that there are three rules which will actually contribute the value of one particular claim. Now, the reason behind this is that when we have multiple top level domains which are federated, there is a third rule which is created by default if you use the switch hyphen support multiple domain while federating a domain. And the purpose of that third rule is to send custom issuer ID. That's exactly the process which will happen for device object as well when you have federated domain. So now let's understand what is the first rule, or what is the purpose of the first rule, what claim it will send with what kind of value. Now, whenever a machine gets domain joined, they get added in a group called domain computers by default. And if you will check the group SID of that particular group to which all these computer objects get added, it will be ending with 515. So what the claim rule number one is saying, that issue account type value as DJ if the device object is a member of this group. That's the purpose of first rule. So in a nutshell, if a machine is domain joined, a computer object will exist in domain computer group, which will have a SID value that ends up with 515. And in this case, account type is DJ, which means domain join. The second rule that gets created, and what is the purpose of this particular rule, that it has to issue object GUID of domain joined computers. And as you can see from AD itself, what all it is doing, that it is querying the value of object GUID. But before sending this value, this process is also verifying that whether the device object is a member of domain joined computers or not. This is the purpose of second claim rule. The third claim rule that is created is to send the object SID of domain joined computers. So as you can see that the group SID is again getting checked, that ends up with 515, and then the primary SID of that particular group, which is domain joined computer itself, is getting sent to Azure Active Directory. Now we have covered three claim rules, and now please pay very close attention to this fourth claim, which is issuer ID, and which is the most important part. Now this will be contributed by three different rules. So let's start off with rule number 4, which says that issue account type value user when it is not a computer. That means what? If a computer will come for authentication, then DJ will be issued, otherwise user will be issued. The next process is to get the issuer ID. If you guys remember, this part is somewhat similar to the third rule that gets created by default when you use -support multiple domain switch. Now once this value is calculated, this will be embedded in the last rule, which is just going to verify the domain joined computer, and then it is going to send the issuer ID. But you can think of something here, and that is, in my case, I've actually mentioned the host name .conceptswork.com because in my scenario, the ADFS is federated, or I have only one single top level federated domain. That means what? Whatever is the value that you see on your ADFS console, if you click on edit federation service properties, will be the same information that will be reflected when you do get-ms all federation property. But when you have multiple top level domains, then for every domain, the set of information that's been reflecting on Office 365 will be different. So this is the small change that I have done in my configuration. But let's say if you have 5 top level domains, then you should mention any one of them here. And there is a public document for this, which I will be sharing in the description. You guys can go through with that and try this as well. And if you have any questions, please feel free to ask in the comment section. So we have covered the issuer ID part as well. And the last part is to send immutable ID of the computer, which is again sending object GUID as immutable ID. So these are all the 6 rules, or in fact 7 rules, which has to be available on ADFS, and then only the authentication is processed. Now if I go back to my ADFS machine, and if I would show you these rules, so for this demo, just to save time, I have already created these rules. This is 2019 server, and I'm clicking on edit claim issuance policy. And as you can see, all these rules are created. But don't worry, I will be sharing all this information in the description section, which you can review from there. Or if you have already configured ADFS with these rules, just try to go through with them and relate whatever I have told right now. So now the last step which is remaining is switching to a machine which I will be hybrid Azure AD joining, and that too with the federated domain. So I'll switch to my machine which I will be using to get hybrid Azure AD joined, and then we'll check what all information we get on portal as well as on local AD. So this is my machine which has to be joined to Azure Active Directory with hybrid Azure AD join state. But right now this machine is not even domain joined. Now the reason why I have not domain joined this particular machine, because I have to show you the task which will get enabled by default. This machine is domain joined, as well as I have to show you that when a machine is getting domain joined, at the same time when this task gets enabled, all the endpoints are accessed, as well as the respective user certificate is being stamped to the user object as well. So this is the entire process which happens when you domain join a machine, provided you have all the configuration in place which is required. Now I'll do something. I'll also switch to my machine wherein I will show you the GPO, I think, which I have missed. So I'll quickly go to my machine where I have 80. Once again, the same machine has 80FS as well. And I will open Group Policy Management Console and I will show you the policy which I have changed, or where exactly I have added the link, the fourth link of my 80FS server. So this is my default domain policy and I'm clicking on Edit, and I'll go to Preferences of my computer object. Sorry, I'll go to Policies and I'll go to Admin Templates, and then I'll go to Windows Components. And from here, I'm going to select Internet Explorer, and then I'm going to select Internet Control Panel Settings, Security Page, and then Site to Zone Assignment Show. And as you can see, this is the same link which I have added with these four links, so that there should be no issues in terms of SSO. Now what I'll do is I'll switch back to my machine, my client machine, and I'm going to domain join this machine. There's one more thing which I will do is I will not restart this machine until and unless this device object is synced to Azure Active Directory, because then whatever we'll do will make a lot of sense. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to domain join this machine, and as soon as this machine is domain joined, what you will see that this task will get enabled by default. So if I refresh this now, you can see it is running because here the machine is domain joined. So I'll click on OK, and I'll again click on OK, but I'm not going to restart this machine because there is something which I have to verify on my 80. So for that, I'll go to 80 and I'll refresh my computer list. And this is the machine which has been recently joined. And I'll go back, and as you can see, the user certificate is populated. Now I have told the reason why this attribute has to be populated, then only the device object gets synced to Azure Active Directory. If you have not watched the video of managed domains, once you finish this video, please watch that video as well. So now I have user object created, and what I'll quickly do is I'll initiate a sync cycle so that this object should get synced to Azure Active Directory. I'll also launch AAD Connect to verify whether this object is synced to Azure Active Directory or not. So for that, I'm going to launch sync tool itself, and then I'll go to Metaverse and I'll click on search. Let's just verify the name. It's ADFS hybrid. And right now the import is going on in Azure Active Directory. Perfect. The sync is completed and it is not showing the device object. Okay. So now I have clicked on search once again, and as you can see, I'm getting ADFS hybrid with two connectors. Now the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to switch to portal to see whether there is any object created with this name or not. So for that, let me switch to my browser, and then it'll make a lot of sense. So if I go to devices container, I should find that particular object here. Devices, and as you can see, it is showing me ADFS hybrid. But there's one more thing which you have to notice, that is here it is showing pending as well as activity is showing NA. This means what? The moment there will be one active logon on my machine and the user gets the PRT, these values should be populated. So what I'll do now is I'll switch back to my client machine. I'll get the machine restarted, and once the machine is restarted, I'll resume the video for you. So now the machine has been restarted. I'm just trying to sign in with one of my synced accounts, and let's see what all we get when we try to run the command ds-cmd. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open command prompt, and then we'll try running the command to see if Azure AD PRT is available on this particular machine or not, and what is the current state of this particular machine. What we'll also check is the activity timestamp on the portal, whether it is getting populated or not. So I'm going to open command prompt and we'll do ds reg cmd status. And as you can see, I'm getting Azure AD PRT as well as this machine is joined to Azure Active Directory as well as domain. That means this machine is hybrid Azure AD joined. Now, if I go back to my portal and let's refresh this page just to see if this particular value of activity timestamp is getting populated or not. And as you can see, it's getting populated now. So this was all about knowing how federated environment works, and I have tried to cover most of the information. But still, if you think there is something which I have missed or which I should cover, please let me know in the comment section. So now let's talk about a brief summary of what all we have discussed. We have covered how to configure hybrid Azure AD join when you have a federated domain. We have discussed about AD Connect setup requirement as well as ADFS claim rule. In the next video, I'm going to talk about a comparison between ADFS and Azure Active Directory. If you guys have learned something new, please feel free to subscribe. Or if you have any feedback, question, or suggestion, please feel free to reach me at learnconceptswork@gmail.com. Thank you so much. Thanks for your time.